Are you prepared to live in a grid down scenario if a cataclysmic event occurs in your country? Hey guys, thank you so much for stopping by Ask the Oracle channel. Today's message is really serious, therefore I won't be goofing off today, even though I do love to do that. Not today. Today's topic is one that I have been quite reluctant to even share at all, and especially publicly. But I feel that I have to. The material is so important, and because of the way I receive the messages, and then it keeps happening where synchronistic things happen, and I'll open a book and it's saying the exact same thing, and the book was written in the 30s, or so I'm like, whoa, okay, so apparently my guides, my guidance, my higher self wants me to share this, what I received regarding some cataclysmic events that may be coming in the near future. I am recording today in October of 2025. I don't know if it's called autonomic writing and what's the right word to explain what I do. But what'll happen is I will start hearing, I'll sit down to write and I'll start hearing all these words just flow in, and I just start writing and writing and writing. And sometimes I don't even read what I write, and then I'll close my book and I forget. I turned to a page where I had channeled something regarding an event coming in the near future. And I was told for myself, now this may not be for anyone but for me, for what it's worth, as far as where I need to be before it happens, okay? And I had no idea what it was, except for that I could see that it was an event that affected North America and perhaps the entire earth in different various locations. It wouldn't be like, it didn't feel like it was everywhere and impacted exactly the same. But because I am in North America, I was shown where I'm at, what was coming. And so I had wrote down that in 3.88 years from the date that I had wrote that down, March 7th, 2025, that there was something coming, and I would need to be prepared to shelter in one location perhaps for 10 to 12 years. And I thought, wow, that's a long time, especially if you love to travel, right? 10 to 12 years in one location. Okay. What I had seen was that the grid was going to be knocked out in some form or fashion. You know how like I was traveling in space with maybe one of the masters or an angel, I'm not sure. I was with them though, and we were flowing and in outer space, and I saw the whole North America, and I saw the lights go out, and it was like something from the sky happened, an explosion or something of some kind, and it knocked the grid out, which was going to cause major issues with communication and travel. You've heard about the continent of Mu, Lemuria, and Atlantis. For most of you, Atlantis hadn't been wiped completely. The records of that haven't been completely wiped from history. What happened was Mu was sunk by no one knows what exactly, and Atlantis was sunk as well by a cataclysmic event. So now I believe I have heard this from an archaeologist. He was saying that there's a cycle. I'm not sure if it was Graham Hancock or another archaeologist channel on YouTube. Could be The Fifth Kind. I watch that channel occasionally. But whatever the case, there is a 11,600, 12,000 year cycle that has been recorded where there looks to be a civilization that was wiped out by a cataclysmic event. And there's also prophecies from Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus that I'm going to cover with you today, okay? I'm going to cover with you some material after I explain to you why I'm sharing this today. What I wasn't not aware of is what was going to cause this blackout, okay? And before we get started and go into the material, I also want you to be aware that there are nexus points in our timelines where the collective can shift and the worst can be averted, right? That is what I have seen has happened. And many of Nostradamus's prophecies, they didn't all come true. And thank God they didn't, because those were some really bad things, that really a bad, like the worst case scenario timelines and some of what he saw. And I was also guided to understand that there are some things we cannot change. We cannot, especially if it's from the prime creator, the infinite spirit of the universe, God, and his angelics that he uses to carry out his will. So say there's so many different possible timelines, and the collective chose one of the least destructive for the life forms of our planet and the planet itself. And it's still not a perfect choice. It still comes with losses of life and a whole new civilization. Okay, let's just put that out there, because I was told there are things we cannot. We can pray all we want, but if it's from the heavens and it's a divine thing where God's put his angels in place to carry out, which I thought was really interesting, because we're going to be talking about Apophis. Apophis is an asteroid that's 12,000 feet in diameter. It is huge, and it's coming so close to our Earth that this is shocking me when I tell you this. I feel like somebody needs to be talking about this in serious terms, because it's coming closer than our moon and closer than many communication satellites that we use. And provided it does not get pulled into Earth's gravitational field, we'll be okay. But what if somebody does something and it is pulled into the Earth's gravitational field? I found evidence of, in Nostradamus, I found evidence of him talking about the two rocks. I found all this information, so I'm going to be sharing that. But think about it. There's a 600-mile keyhole that if it gets near it, and what about other things going on the planet? What if they turn on CERN in Switzerland, and they try to do something and it brings in all these asteroids, which is also explained in Nostradamus. He brought out something under the ground where scientists did that and no one's going to know. Let's just say don't do it when Apophis is near the planet, because you might destroy yourself. I found out about Apophis after I had channeled, and I keep going back to these books. They're saying the same thing. So I have to share this because it's scary. And it also coincides with what my guides told me, is that I may need to find a place to live and stay in one place for 10 to 12 years until there's things rebuilt, because it's going to be so devastating on such a huge scale that there won't be electricity for a long time, perhaps. I can't say that it's going to be 10 to 12 years before the electrical grid is repaired, but it feels like there's just a lot of unknowns with this one. How deep, how wide it's going to impact everyone, and it will impact everyone. So that's why if it does happen, we need to prepare now, because and we need to prepare in a calm, trusting manner, that you're going to be guided by your higher self and your ancestors and loved ones and the divine mind to be in a safe place when and if it happens. Because basically, if you're anywhere near the area that it's going to happen, you just move. You find another place you love, and you move your family, and you protect your family. As far as what would you do without electricity? Are you prepared? I'm not going to be the expert on what you would do. I have books on that. There's all kinds of survival books. But before I go any further, I just want to share this part with you. This is what I was picking up another book yesterday or the day before, and it said exactly the same thing that I was sharing with Apophis, possibly hitting off of the west coast of LA, Santa Monica, and Southern California, where it connects to Mexico. So I turned to a page, and it said, to the west, we could see the Sierra and Cascade Mountains. And this is Godfrey traveling with Saint Germain. He was taking him across North America, which North America, for the most part, will remain intact, because America was supposed to be a place of freedom, a place of liberty, and Christ's consciousness in the golden age was supposed to come from here and shine its light all over the rest of the globe. So America should be preserved. I don't know about its governments, what's going to happen with that. But America in itself was supposed to be a beautiful place in the future of the Aquarian age. To the west, we could see the Sierra and Cascade Mountains, and still farther on, the Coast Range, and whose shoreline is all to be changed. So he's talking about the Pacific coastline, because then he goes on, northward, we looked down upon the Yellowstone, talking about the park. So he was on the Pacific coast traveling with Saint Germain from Mount Shasta. So Southern California is totally going to be reshaped. And, you know, that's what made me make this video, was me finding that. So then I picked up some other books that I have on the subject to see what does Nostradamus have to say in Dolores Cannon's channel book. And then I got this book I just happened to pick up a minute ago, which I'm not sure if I read it or skipped around, but this was done by Elizabeth Clare Prophet, talking about the prophecies for the new millennium. You know, I'm wearing this really heavy fabric because it's blocking the EMF from my brain. I woke up this morning and I was so irritated, and it was so bizarre. And all of a sudden I could hear like frequencies, and it was like, and it was like making me feel like angry and restless, and I had to really ground today. And then I thought, oh, well, let me just put on my copper cloth and block it out. So I do feel much better. And of course, right now I can't hear the but every now and again, I'm so sensitive. I can hear all the electricity. I can hear low frequency waves. Oh, it's awful. You don't want to be so sensitive that you can hear things that other people cannot. It's tough sometimes to be a sensitive person. If you've made it this far, please show me some appreciation, like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell just so that anything I do post will show up. So the book that I had picked up that kind of pushed me to create this video for you today was this one, Unveiled Mysteries by Godfrey Ray King. And it's a book that I never finished, and so I had already written the Substack article about Apophis, and then I come across this book and I pick it up and I turn to a page that says the exact same thing about the southern coast of California being totally changed in the future. And this was, keep in mind, this book was written in the 1930s. So Godfrey was traveling with Saint Germain across from Mount Shasta, and they were traveling across the sky. And he says, to the west, we could see the Sierra and Cascade Mountains, and still farther on, the Coast Range, whose shoreline is all to be changed. Northward, we looked down upon the Yellowstone. That's where I had picked it up, and it's verified that there's something coming to the coast. Now, everyone knows that lives on the San Andreas Fault in California that there is supposedly going to be a big one. But did you know what could cause it? Well, I didn't know. So I watched the Y-Files, and I also watched more of a religious biblical channel that was talking about it, and I'll include the links so that in the description box below. One is shorter and one is longer, and you don't have to be a Christian to appreciate how the one person did this and talked about wormwood and Revelation and John, and he brought in how is it Apophis? Is that what's the thing coming from the sky that's going to do a lot of changes? So I'll let you watch that, because I couldn't do any better than them on these videos, therefore I'm not even going to try. But what I wanted to share with you is how this is coming to my attention and how I channeled there's something happening, and it's also coincides with this event coming in 2029. In addition, I also have other books, Nostradamus, Dolores Cannon's Nostradamus volume Conversations with Him, Volume 1, and then I found this one too, which she was going over, Elizabeth Clare Prophet. This one's called St. Germain's Prophecies for the New Millennium, and she was talking about some of the stuff that Nostradamus talked about. So basically on page 172 of this book here, he is talking about the San Andreas Fault and the 2 points, the triangle. 2 of the points in California, 2 major cities are going to be totally hit by severe earthquakes, okay? Now, they're saying that if Apophis does get into our gravitational field, that it will go into the Pacific. I can't remember the number. Not far off of the coast near Santa Monica, right there. Mexico, California. Southern California is going to be impacted with earthquakes and a tsunami, okay? And many people will die, and it'll change the entire coastline. It'll be different from there on. And, you know, the earth is so amazing and that it holds all its records. It's just we don't know what happened and when. If you look at the Gulf of Mexico, it has a circle. It was hit by a crater. And there's other places on the planet that have been hit by asteroids in the past that left a giant hole. There's one in Arizona that I had been to that has petrified rainbow trees. He said at Easter in the temple, the abyss opened. And you know, I'm not sure if he was talking about CERN, so that kind of scared me when I thought, oh no, they better not try to do something with CERN and power that up at the same time this asteroids coming through, which by the way, didn't they do that? Oh my gosh, I feel like I watched a video on YouTube where they actually did that and they created more asteroids coming in and no one knew. That seems like it was here. But it's not a good thing if they decide to do that at this point in time. This you don't want to play with. So yeah, so you guys who live on San Andreas Fault, you know, you went through probably North Lake 1994 earthquake. That was serious. Or was it 93? Somewhere in there it was serious. I saw it on TV. It was scary. I was like, oh my God, that's traumatic. I wanted to bring out again is just so you know, there are some things we have to accept. We have to just accept the role that we play in the whole picture of what's going to happen if we have no power to change. We just have to prepare ahead of time, which means you just move. If your guides are telling you to and you don't want to because you love your home, which I understand. I love California, is amazing in some ways. Why would you want to move anywhere else in the United States? There's no other California in the US. But just maybe for temporary, for a time. I don't know. If you're feeling it, just trust your instincts, okay? And I want to reiterate what I had wrote down. North America is to carry the Christ light and be the guide for the golden age. And I wrote this down. It was in this book. The greater portion will stand for a long time. I don't think this is a pole shift. In fact, even I found that Nostradamus talked about the pole shift being so far into the future. It's not going to happen with this event. But this event, oh, they don't know. How can they tell you it's safe? They don't know it's safe. There are too many factors involved that nobody knows. And when I told you earlier that we missed a lot of the really bad stuff by choosing this cataclysmic event over some of the other stuff, if you were to read all of the prophecies of Nostradamus, it was bad. Like there's one where he talks about New York City and London and biological warfare from labs being leaked out in the entire city of London, and New York had a plague and nobody could go and people were starving because there was no food being delivered there. So, you know, maybe we avoided that. I don't know, because thank God that hasn't happened in my lifetime. But, you know, and then also the nuclear bombs. He was talking about how the Antichrist wanted to bomb all these places, and he actually was, you know, in many of his quatrains, that's what he mentioned of how they just were constantly doing that, and it destroyed all the food, you know, the entire area like of Italy and certain places in Europe. though you couldn't eat the fish in the sea because it was poisoned and people were starving. And so in one of his prophecies, he said they would be eating it anyway. And of course you're going to die. You get radioactive energy and the body can't do that. So what do? You know, when it comes to no food to eat. So, you know, there's a lot of things I think that we are choosing not to do. We're not going to go along with the anti-human agenda that is behind the shadow figures that are currently the puppet masters of the political figures. What I also found interesting was he says the Antichrist will succeed in taking over England. And England is a place that I love. I love England. I lived there in another timeline in a beautiful place, but still I would be so sad. But he also said that England would be affected by an earthquake that would cut it in half. I looked at Edgar Cayce's map. I'm going to include that. I'm going to include the map here. He shows where the entire northern Europe is redone. But, you know, his was like he was seeing a cataclysmic event that looked like a pole shift, which whether or not this has the potential to look like Edgar Cayce's map afterwards, I don't know. I don't know that part. But the healing of the planet is destined to occur. The people are done with war. We're sick and tired of it. So I thought it was interesting. The fall of Atlantis may have been done by a cluster of asteroids, either done naturally, or it could have been done by extraterrestrials gathering the asteroids and flinging them at the Earth. Because that was one of the things we couldn't change. If it was the angelic extraterrestrials doing it for a good reason, then, you know, what can you do? You just got to move and ask for guidance on where to go. Some of the places that were impacted, Nostradamus said, which as I mentioned, was the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea, and the Sea of Japan. And these people in the areas was intense and flooded with tsunamis. Once that asteroid hits and that water, you got to be at the highest place that you can be when it comes to this kind of cataclysmic event. So there are places that were brought to my attention that are safe zones, perhaps, and even Nostradamus mentioned it. The Pyrenees Mountains. There are just the higher points on the planet, near mountains and away from the ocean, obviously. Maybe just stay away from it around the time this comes, okay? You know, I don't know what to tell you if you're guided, you know. But also in Nostradamus's prediction, there was one also that concerned me, where there is an underground city, he called it, that's within a mountain, a hollowed out mountain. It almost sounds like NORAD in Colorado Springs. And he talks about how the water wasn't purified and it got polluted with some sort of material that caused it to become activated, or it was a nuclear reactor that polluted the water and it smelled like sulfur, something like that. There's a quatrain. And then today, when I was deciding to share with you, I came across and here where Elizabeth Clare Prophet was talking about where Nostradamus mentioned a rock that's two of them at the same time. And I hope I marked it. And then there was something else, because what I saw was like an EMP, but EMPs are what nuclear devices release. I don't know that an asteroid is an EMP. I don't think it is. It seems like I looked it up, and nuclear devices that explode could do an EMP, and an EMP would put everything out if it were to happen on a large scale. There was a NASA Saturn probe that was carrying 72 pounds of deadly plutonium dioxide fuel, and it could turn into a king of terror. Such a scenario worries anti-nuclear activists, even though NASA says the chance that the Cassini spacecraft would hit the Earth is less than the 1 in a million. Of course, any space probe or even the space station, if it were to crash into an ocean during, could be a terror coming. But then this is what I discovered that she didn't know at the time she wrote this, which is many years ago. We've been trying to figure out Nostradamus for years, and this was written in 1999. And so the king of terror, Nostradamus, commentators refer to the Egyptian father of terror. What is Apophis? It's named after the Egyptian god of chaos. And it's coming so close. I just don't feel good about it, guys. I don't. And she put, how the father of terrors would come from the sky is not clear. Well, it's clear to me today. It could be an asteroid, the father of Egyptian terror. Another thing I thought was so fun to find is in this book, which I didn't put the page number down, but he was talking about how Nostradamus was talking about how the Watchers are come to our solar system and our galaxy to awaken humanity to love and higher timeline. And we are currently experiencing that now. And he talked about a time in the future where this would occur, where these Watchers were coming, and that the scientists would be baffled and they would let the light out on it, where it was out in the open, that they didn't know what it was, that it was something foreign and possibly, like a UFO, in the galaxy. And we now have 3-eye atlas, and many of us think that it is a higher being of awareness for the light to uplift humanity with light codes, and it's moving around in our galaxy in a way that is unexplainable, right? Not like any comet they've ever seen. And so I thought that was funny that I found that. Now some Watchers are not good, but some are. Some have been watching us, and they help us and assist us to raise our vibrations and our frequencies and do good things. And some don't have our best intentions. So keep that in mind. You really got to feel into it. I think that if it were a negative Watcher, it would be hiding. It's not hiding. So, oh no, don't tear my chair up. Okay, so basically, one of the things that Nostradamus talks a lot about is he talks a lot about the Antichrist, right? And what I thought was really encouraging was, as I read to you earlier, is that I live in North America. I would love to go to Europe and move away and live somewhere with a beautiful turquoise sea and mountains, and it's beautiful over there. Okay, it's to me, North America doesn't have any beautiful beaches and the mountains combined, and that's special if you got that where you live. It's kind of not something everyone experiences. But anyway, what I thought was interesting was he talks about a Antichrist that has been in the Middle East, and I feel like a lot of that has been altered and changed. However, when he said that it would take over England, and I see how their government is shutting down their farms and doing all kinds of terrible things, now they can't have no free speech whatsoever in England. I do believe that these prophecies are being fulfilled in real time. So, but you got to keep in mind, anytime there's a cosmic tyrant, there's always a hero or a nemesis that rises up. And apparently the one that is supposed to rise up, and whether or not he's there or not, is someone called Ogmios, or the archetype of the Celtic god of eloquence. And so he will be the nemesis to any future shadowy anti-human agenda. Now, also, there's an underground movement taking place, and, it's not going to be long before the old governments that aren't working for the people are no longer going to be in their position of power, because I feel like the people have woke up now. They understand that they don't need these governments who are trying to dominate and control them. Now, how that's going to look where people start standing up for themselves against tyranny, I don't know. But just know that it's going to happen where we're going to be in a golden age. And we chose a timeline that may still be devastating for many. However, I do not believe, I was told that we chose a timeline that did not include nuclear war where the entire planet's blown up and everyone dies and the earth itself is destroyed. So I was told that the reason we have to prepare for this was because it's a reset, a restart. And yes, it comes with a cataclysm. Imagine what would you do if you had no electricity for any long period of time. There are people who have health problems, people who have to sleep with CPAP machines, people who need dialysis, or there's certain things that we need or we are accustomed to having. And think about what would life be like if you didn't have your necessities. What would you do different? Maybe, just maybe, the whole point of my video here is to get you to start thinking of how would you prepare? Where would you want to be if you had to be in one location for 10 to 12 years? Where would you want to be? Where do you live now? Is it too hot in the summer? Would you die of a heat stroke if you had no air conditioner? What about winter time? What kind of winters do you have? Is there enough firewood and resources where you live to have heat from a fireplace if there's no electricity, or you can't use gas or something weird like that? Because doesn't gas require electricity to be delivered to your house? I mean, there's so many things you've got to think about, which, by the way, there are books on it. And if you don't have a hard copy of a book on how to survive, you should buy a hard copy. All right, so, okay, let's go to healing the planet. So as I was talking to you about Ogmios, that Nostradamus mentioned would be the nemesis to the Antichrist, and he's an eloquent speaker, and he comes out of Central, perhaps, we don't know, but we feel like he comes out of somewhere in Europe. And then after him, or I don't know, somewhere along this time where we're leaving the Piscean to the Aquarian age, there comes a great genius. And he's going to be bringing a lot of healing to humanity, and a lot of healing for our planet, the things that he invents and comes up with. So we will be going into a higher timeline, but I was brought out to tell you that the healing of our planet cannot happen until humanity embraces the feminine principle. The feminine principle, and balances the masculine and the feminine polarity within their own selves. That means a lot of shadow work. A lot. You got to change how you look at the other sex. If you think they're less than you or you're more superior than them, then you really do need a whole reframe, because I'm going to tell you that as a human, we can incarnate in a physical body. As a spiritual being, we can be a girl, we can be a boy, depending on what we need to experience. So it's silly to think, I'm sorry, my hair is doing something. So you need to tap into your other side. If you're a girl or woman, what does your masculine version of you look like? What does that look like? If you're a man, what is your feminine side? What does your feminine side look like? What does it feel like to be a woman and you're feminine? And I'm not talking about sexuality. I'm not going into it that way. I'm talking about what would it feel like for you if you were the opposite of what you are now. How do you think you would be in that role? Since I've done quantum healing hypnosis, I discovered that yes, I was a man, which, by the way, when I first got this news years ago, I wasn't ready for it. And I'm like, no way, I'm not a man. No. I always, when I was growing up, thought men were stupid or the lesser because women seemed so much smarter than them. But that was when I was growing up, I thought that. And then of course I didn't have a father. I didn't even much have a mother either. So it's kind of like an orphan, you know, that had some grandparents that were they were good. You know, it was a good experience to have those grandparents there for us. But so I didn't have any, like I had a void, like, I don't know. I don't even have a father. I don't even know what that looks like. You know, I mean, I can see it in other people, but there was nothing here, you know. So I had a lot to work on with the healing of my masculine. And like I said, I didn't even think men were smart. Well, some men are smart, but what's good if you have all head and no heart, you know? So anyways, so I had a lot to work on. And then all of a sudden I'm being guided to be like, I had before I moved to the East Coast, this psychic lady said, you were a man out there. And I was seeing it, like I was already connecting. And that's going to be for another day. I guess that doesn't fit in here, but all I'm saying is for us to heal the planet, we got to work. We got inner work to do, guys. We got to help each other. Yes, but we really got to learn how to integrate the new frequencies coming in. So this is where I want to tell you. Every day you wake up in the morning, provided you don't wake up with some kind of weird frequency coming from the cell phone towers around you, and it's irritating your nerves, and it's making you angry, and you know, because there's this frequencies like constantly beating down at you, coming from something that should not be in the sky, in the air. That's technology that they don't know if it's good or bad, and they haven't done enough tests to determine. Well, as long as you don't wake up that way, but if you do, you're really going to need to meditate and ground. And so one of the things I liked about Godfrey's book is that it shows us Saint Germain's always there for those who want to work with the master. You've got to meet a certain level of attainment and prove and be disciplined and show the master that you're willing to be a student that can pass your tests too, because you got a lot of tests to pass if you're studying with a master teacher. But what I loved about this was he told us in the very, very beginning, he told Godfrey what to do. He told Godfrey that he needed to meditate 10 to 30 minutes every morning and focus on his silver cord going into from the crystalline silver cord that brings in the God frequency into the crown chakra at the very. I apologize. My phone has been telling me I have no memory or anything, any space. And I think it's quite odd that every time I delete almost every app, I still have no space. So anyway, it cut me off, so I apologize. Yeah, so the book mentions how in the morning it's a good idea for all of us to start with meditation and focus in our breathing on our crown chakra and seeing the golden ray of light and surrounding ourselves with white light emanating and breathing and doing your breath work, and start grounding every single day. Minimum 10 minutes, 30 is better. And some people just do meditating for hours, but I don't really know how anyone has time to do that. That would be awesome if you actually have that kind of a lifestyle where you could meditate for hours. I definitely would be taking long walks and doing walking meditations if that's the case. But anyway, so I just wanted to leave you with that. And I hope that you did get some information that's valuable from this. Please share if you did. And also, I will be including the link that gives you more information on what to prepare for, provided there is a cataclysmic event in 2029, in the spring of 2029. You will have to be aware that there are forces that would probably take away your food and your supplies. And I had a really cool synchronistic dream where I woke up hearing "Remember Fort Hamby," and Fort Hamby is a place I can't remember because I never heard of it, which is so fun. My guides, my higher self gives me clues, and I have to decipher messages all the time, and I love it. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. And then I looked it up, and sure enough, there was a place called Fort Hamby where some single women lived, and some outlaw bandits came and took over their log cabin in the Civil War in America. And yep, those things can happen. So I mean, it's just so much you have to think about. So I know it's gonna be hard to think about these things, because like I said, I did not want to share this video with anyone. But I have to, because I have seen things, I've been told things that happened that I never thought I would ever see. Like I said, my guides told me 10 years before it happened that there was some time to make sure that I don't go along with it if it ever happened. And I didn't. I never got one of those injections because I was guided not to. And I never told anyone. I kept that one to myself. And then when I tried to share it, my YouTube channel got knocked down. So anyways, let's change subject there. But just know that don't get in fear. Fear is a low vibe. You gotta, right now, you gotta start taking care of yourself. Taking care of yourself. Turn the television's distractions, the violence. Don't feed your mind with negative anything. But do understand that just because someone says, oh, this might happen, doesn't mean it's going to. But like I was guided to tell you, is some things we can't control. And the best thing to do is to make a decision that we're going to be brave and have faith and trust that we'll be guided where to go if indeed there is a cataclysmic coming in our neighborhood. You know, that's all we can do. And so I just want to share this message with you from my heart, send you lots and lots of love, and please take care of yourself until we meet again.